Okay, so let's be serious. Being overweight and obese is not pleasant to look at. It's a pain to live with, and it's probably going to shorten your life. In our mind, three great reasons to go ahead and sort things out. Now, we know you agree because, quite frankly, there's not a single person on the planet who would like to be number two. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so let me introduce you to number one and number two, and let's answer a couple of basic questions. The first one is, who do you think looks better? Second one is, who do you think feels better? And then, who is likely to last the longest? Now, if we look at them honestly, we will say there's no question number one generally looks better, feels better, and is probably likely to outlive number two. That's the reason why everybody wants to be number one if they had the choice. That's who they'd want to be. Well, we believe that you actually do. Have a choice, that is. Again, nobody wants to be number two, but you don't have to be. You actually have the choice to be number one. But before you get there, there are a couple of things that you must understand. The first thing is that being overweight or obese is a complex problem. It's a complex problem that requires a complex solution, not one of these overly simplistic quick fix promises that only ends up getting you down and not your weight. Let me show you in a beautiful little diagram exactly what I mean. Okay, we've already agreed that number one is what we want. That is our goal. That is what would make us happy, right? But number two is what we've actually got right now, and it's what we describe as our actual position. It's something that really is not what we want. The problem is we have this large obstacle in our way. But in order to get from there to there, we need to go ahead and make some changes. But before we do that, we have to ask again another question. If we've got this, which is something we don't want, how did we get that? And in order to answer the question, we've got to look on the left-hand side of the equation. We live in a world of cause and effect. What you are is the result of what you've been doing. So let's have a look at it. It's how you think, it's how you eat, it's how you move, it's how you, or what you put into your body. It's also a result of the totally insane circumstances that you find yourself in. It's temptation for the most part. And it's the temptation which interacts with factor F. Oh yes, factor F. Factor F is your genetic makeup, your current shape and function, in other words, your anatomy and physiology, and again, your actual physical environment. Only when you consider your mind, how you're thinking, your eating, your food, your movement, or no movement for that matter, what you're putting into your body in terms of products, medication, and all these other things, as well as, again, those very trying circumstances, when you consider those things in conjunction with you as an individual, with your current health and body shape, as we said, and function, and your particular environment, can you have an idea or really understand what's happening with your actual position? Again, this is a mental, emotional, physical, social, and environmental problem. It's complicated. But in order to move you from where you are, again, over this obstacle to where you want to be, there must be a way. And the good news is, there is. So you see, I'm not exaggerating when I'm saying a complex problem. Unless you are factoring in all the mental, emotional, physical, social, environmental factors, you are not going to be able to deal with this particular issue. So now what we need to be asking is, okay, is there really that solution for me? Meaning a solution that factors in all the issues and is one that enables me to actually be number one. Now you know the answer in our mind is yes. And the best way for me to show you is to show you in another diagram. If you think back to our previous diagram, you'll remember that what was happening here was tempting. It was tempting. It was something that was a lot of things interacting with who you are as an individual to produce the very thing that you do not want, your actual position. So now we've got to be asking again with regards a solution we need to be thinking, well, the solution has to be as complex in many respects as the problem. If you want to be number one, you really, really want to overcome that obstacle, we now need to be looking at something more along the lines of practical tips. Ways to think, ways to ingest, or another way of just saying the food you need to eat, ways in which you need to engage in physical activity, and then certainly how you can support that socially and in every other way. That needs to interact, that combination there, with, again, your particular genetics. It has to be an individualized program. If it's not an individualized program, it's not the right fit. With your shape and function, again, your anatomy and physiology, this ties in very, very much with that genetic component, and then ensuring that you have an environment for success. These are all the important components. When we get this right, and it can differ from person to person, obviously, in terms of all the things we've just discussed here, as well as their preferences. This is so important. It comes down to choice. There's no way in the world that a person can give you a perfect complex program or solution that if you don't like it, you'll continue to do it. It's just not going to happen. The bottom line is you need both. You need a complex solution that is very, very nicely lined up or in line with your preferences, and only then can you really expect to win in this losing game. Okay, so let's summarize things to this point. We understand that being overweight and obese is not something that looks good. It doesn't feel good, and it certainly doesn't lend itself to great longevity. We know it's a complex problem, and we know that it requires a complex solution. But there is something very, very important for us to consider. It's not just about knowledge. You know what to do to change. I'm pretty sure of that. You know enough ways to eat and to move and probably even to supplement to get you to be number one, at least for a short while. The difficulty is you don't necessarily understand everything that has to come together in the complexity of what's happening. And this is where it's so important that a complex problem and the complex solution is easily stated or simply stated, put very, very plainly. And then it needs to be very practically applied. Complexity does not have to equal difficulty. In fact, this does not have to be difficult at all. The more you understand it, the more you understand how your mind works, how your body reacts and responds to the kinds of things you eat and how you move and the other kinds of things you put into it, that is when you stand the best chance of producing not only that complex solution, but one that is actually doable and easily doable. This is what you need to be focusing on. You need to get together the understanding and be able to piece together a complex solution that is a journey, not an event. This is all about a skills development program. It's about putting things together in a way that systematically gives you the kind of life you're wanting to or willing to live, that gives you that number one result. That's what you've got to do. Now, we're not going to leave you short. We're not going to leave you in the cold. We're going to give you two great opportunities or ways in which you can do that. Number one, something that you can do pretty much on your own. And what I mean by on your own is you can use our NEB3 software. This is a practical, comprehensive desktop application that literally can be your weight loss coach. It is something that factors in all the complexity of, again, how you think, how you eat, how you move, how your body functions, and it gives you the opportunity to literally, by your preference, by your choice, create the kinds of programs that will build a new way of life, a way of life that will give you number one spot. Now, if you're the kind of person who says, you know what, I don't know that I necessarily want to just be reading, I would like somebody else to be alongside in terms of giving me clear indication and broadening everything for me in terms of understanding, well then this is for you. It's what we call the winner's way. This is a comprehensive video series, something like what we've just done here, a way in which you can understand how everything fits together, how everything works. And we guarantee you, when you understand that, you will be best positioned to make the kinds of decisions that bring about successful and lasting change. It's called the winner's way. This no longer needs to be a losing battle. Isn't it time you won? Well, now you can with NEB3 as your personal weight loss coach, or the Winner's Way series, which will take you all the way to being the number one lean, energetic, and healthy individual you've always wanted to be. It's time you went and made that choice because it's one you do have. We really, really hope that you'll make that decision, that you'll come along with us in this journey of skills development, because this is your opportunity for an entirely new way of life.